Saturday, January 18th. And this is the Salim MuWakkil Show on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON. You can also catch us streaming loud and clear by using iHeart apps on your smartphones or tablets, or by directing your browser to WVON.com. However you got here, you've made it to the place where we sift the news of the world and try to provide some necessary context. We want to inform you even as you're entertained. And because all of my callers are special guests, it's important that we stay respectful. In fact, part of my mission is to model respectful discourse. And of course, we need you for that. So, are you ready to flex those mind muscles? Because family, if it's 7 on Saturday, it's time for Salim MuWakkil, live from WVON's Xfinity Studios. And we are ready to talk to you, the most astute radio audience in America. Well, the president spoke Friday on the issue of surveillance and privacy. And although the speech had a nice rhetorical tone, as his speeches often do, he really made very few substantial changes in the way our personal data potentially is gathered and retained. Rather than describe specific plans, the president left it to be decided in terms of the details that would determine just how meaningful the changes he promised would be. I mean, there's a possibility that they could be, meaningful. It all depends on the details. He asked security officials to develop ways to protect the privacy of foreigners, for example, which I guess is a good thing. We won't be embarrassed again probably by news that we are listening in on the conversations of our allies, the leadership even, like, Angela Merkel and whatnot. So he wanted to develop ways to protect that. He also asked Congress to help figure out how to store bulk telephone data, which is probably the most controversial aspect of all of that. He invited other proposals to restructure a secret intelligence court, the FISA court. The president, in essence, punted the most important issues to Congress. And he does that just as lawmakers are entering an election year, where once there was very little popular demand for reining in the spy agencies. Today, momentum has built in some quarters, really thanks primarily to the disclosures of Edward Snowden. Those disclosures have invigorated folks on the left, the civil liberties crowd on the left, and prompted heated calls for reform in the national security state from folks, progressives and whatnot, as they are usually called these days. But it's also drawn criticism from this renewed political vigor of the libertarians and their representatives, primarily personified by Kentucky Senator Rand Paul and his father Ron. Although it must be said, and this is an odd aspect of the Republicans at this point, ideological libertarians are still pretty rare. Like the Paul family, they remain pretty rare in Congress. People like Rand Paul who are arguing that we need to reform our foreign policy, de-belligerantize it in some way, to make it less pugnacious and threatening to other nations. You don't find too many Republicans who have adopted that mindset. Some are inching or inclining in that direction, but still Republicans tend to be very strong national security kind of people. And Rand Paul is still a minority, even though libertarianism is catching on in terms of its economic appeal. But it's having a hard time in other areas. And it also must be said that part of this equation in opposition to the president are those who are just reflexively opposed to anything that President Obama supports. These are these dyed-in-the-wool contrarians. There's nothing you can do for them in terms of President Obama. And the president gives his critics much to critique in his speech. He left intact the spy programs that have stirred the most debate, but he modified them a little bit in the hopes of persuading the public that they won't be abused. Like the NSA, for example, will still have to get court permission to search this vast repository of telephone data that they have, and they won't be able to expand the search as far as they did before without the court permission. But the court has been pretty lenient in terms of granting permission. There's been no advocates on the other side, pushing against that or looking out for civil liberties violations, the potential of that. It's been left up to the court. So that is still a questionable tactic. And he also had no answer for the biggest questions, which involved this bulk data collection program. He said that the government should no longer keep the data. He said there were flaws in that. But there were only two alternatives. One is leaving the data with the providers, like Verizon and AT&T, leaving the data with the telecommunications providers, or creating an independent consortium to store it. So that's, he didn't make any decision on that. He just outlined those alternatives. And then he assigned Attorney General Holder and the intelligence director, this James Clapper, the guy who lied overtly to Congress. He directed them to develop a plan, and he asked Congress to assist. So he punted to them. So, I see this situation as a classic Obama dilemma, one that I've seen echoing throughout his tenure. And it was really, for me, a very compelling lesson on the limits of progressive candidates, the limit of a individual who may have progressive ideas. If he is ensconced in a traditional office, he has to follow the job description. And so this is the dilemma that was highlighted by Robert Gates in his new book, Duty, that everybody's kind of, it's been kind of controversial because he came out and criticized the president, not very strongly, but one small section of his book said that the president seemed to be uncommitted to the whole Afghanistan project. He didn't seem to go for this whole surge idea that a lot of his military advisors were urging him to do. And it's also visible to discerning observers in the way the administration dealt with the Syrian issue. When it was, everyone thought we were going to bomb the Assad regime for their chemical weapons thing, and the president kind of punted that to Congress, or he resisted the temptation and all of the urgings to go ahead and do something military to Syria, to use some bombs, to enrich some defense contractors. He was urged strongly, and especially by AIPAC, the Israeli lobby, like the same lobby that's trying to throw a wrench into the works of the Iranian deal. But he resisted all of that. And I think that it just illustrates that the president's inclinations were progressive. He didn't want to go to war in any of these cases. But he's entrapped by the obligations of empire in ways that produce kind of ironic situations for him. For example, like he's being punished for his ambivalence about the benefits of a warlike foreign policy. He's being punished for that. It's like folks are saying to him, either go all in with it or opt out of it. Either go into Syria with guns blazing, or just say that you don't want to go, you don't want to do that at all. You don't want to commit any kind of military efforts to ousting the Assad regime in Syria. But opting out of this is not an option for a president, because the empire's investments are so deep in these policies, and we have so many, obligations that must be attended to. So when you consider all of this deeply, it often leads to thoughts that only a revolution can alter the structures of power that continue to produce our warlike and belligerent and pugnacious foreign policy, and also continue to reproduce these economic disparities. These are structural things that is difficult to eradicate unless you deal with the structure, and that requires something much more radical than we are usually talked about. But as economic disparities grow and as people become increasingly discontent with the obligations of empire, how we have to keep expanding and squandering our national treasure to hold on to these far flung outposts in order, to maintain our sense of superiority in the world. As people get increasingly tired of that, there's going to be changes. Even the most blinkered capitalists can see the writing on the wall about the threat to social stability caused by these income and wealth disparities. Nothing threatens capital accumulation like social instability. I mean, well, of course, there are some capitalists who make money from exploiting social instability, but by and large, social unrest is bad for profits. That's why, for example, affirmative action programs exploded after the urban unrest of the so-called long hot summers of the 60s. When folks were going into the streets and making that whole word revolution resonate a lot stronger because they smelled the smoke of burning buildings. So, there was a lot of fear out here, and corporations can't make money in that kind of situation. And so, a lot of people got jobs. If the corporatocracy is convinced that the widening wealth disparity spell trouble for them, it will take the necessary steps to narrow those disparities enough to release some of the pressure on the society. And, really that's the essence of what some economists call Keynesianism. That's its name for this British economist, John Maynard Keynes, who argued that capitalists need to prime the pump sometime when the markets do their cyclical thing, when they don't solve the problems that the classical economists, the free enterprise economists said that they would, because they have cycles and they automatically increase disparities in wealth. That's what capitalism does. And so whenever that happens to a point where it becomes a threat to social stability, there have to be alterations, and that's where priming the pump comes in. Infusions of capital into society to ensure that those disparities are narrowed a bit so that the workers are not as discontent and threaten revolution. Of course, much else took place in the world, and we may want to continue our Wednesday conversation about how Martin Luther King is being homogenized, especially in the wake of this recent announcement that Oliver Stone has just pulled out of the Martin Luther King biopic that was underway, because he said others were attempting to dictate how he had to portray King. In some tweets, Stone said that the image police, although he didn't use those words, but I think those words are appropriate, that these image police wanted to portray a March on Washington kind of King, rather than to examine his evolution into the radical theorist that he was becoming. And so Stone dropped out. So I guess they'll get another director who is more willing to present the kind of image that they want. Probably something that is that sanctifies king in a way that's unthreatening to capitalism. Nigeria, they just passed an anti-gay law. You can be in prison for 14 years if you were found guilty of any kind of same-sex activity. And now they're rounding up folks and forcing people to fess up. Who else is gay? Who do you know is gay? That kind of thing. Man, that's a nightmare scenario for the LGBT community in Nigeria. Whatever it is. And Uganda, of course, has already passed a law, although the president, Museveni, has refused to sign it, giving a very strange reasons. He had to give reasons that appealed to the level of consciousness that's out there in Uganda. So very strange rulings for why he said he wouldn't go for it. But the primary reason that he vetoed it was because a lot of international donor groups have threatened to withdraw their support from Uganda if it was to go ahead with this kind of a very draconian legislation, anti-gay legislation. But there's a backlash occurring throughout much of the African continent as well against Western insistence that they bow to African way of to the Western notion that homosexual behavior is acceptable. It's socially acceptable. Many African countries don't believe that. They don't adhere to that, and they say, why should the West be able to force their moral precepts on Africa when Africans don't attempt to do that elsewhere? Many African societies, for example, are polygamous. They believe that polygamy is an acceptable social arrangement, but they don't insist that other societies adopt polygamy. So they make the argument that why should these other societies insist that they adopt their particular moral codes? What do you think about that? That's a pretty big issue. My position on it, of course, is that those kinds of anti-homosexual or anti-gay attitudes are a product of modes of production. As long as we have those kinds of deeply agrarian societies, you're going to have, unfortunately, what some call homophobia or rigid understandings of how sexuality is to be practiced, how gender is to be observed, all of that. Traditional, because agrarian culture is that way. So we are going to go to the phones and find out what's on your mind. There's much else we can talk about. Whatever's on your mind, bring it up, and let's go. Aaron, good evening. You're on the Talk of Chicago. How you doing, my brother?
Alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Yeah, I'm the first one now. How about that? That 14-year that you were talking about in Nigeria.
Yes, sir.
About that's kind of heavy there. I mean, wow, get jail for 14 years. That's kind of heavy there.
It's pretty heavy.
But what I really wanted to talk about was that did you hear by any chance about I think I forget what state it was, but there's some fight going on about abortion clinics or whatnot. I think it's either Boston or one of those states. But anyway, I was watching on the news and they was talking about the Supreme Court in one of the states. I think it's down south or Boston, one of those states. But there's some heat going on that the Supreme Court, I think they shut it down. And folks are saying that it's unconstitutional for them to shut that building down. So I'm just, sitting there, watching this, and I'm like, okay, but is it really? I mean, many of us, when we're in school, we take constitutional classes when not where the Constitution is to say, close down, click. Help me out, Salim. Am I missing something here?
Well, I don't know exactly what your issue is here. There are two things there's one that North Carolina, they have a very intrusive requirement for women to have abortions. They have to go through a vaginal probe or something, and there was some resistance to that in the courts. So where that law was was it was declared unenforceable, verging on being unconstitutional. And then the other thing was there was arguments in court about whether people who oppose abortion could get close to abortion clinics, and in their protest, they had there's a buffer zone where they're supposed to stand, I think, 35 feet away from abortion clinics to allow those who are seeking those services to go to unimpeded entrance and exit, and that's being challenged by and the Supreme Court. It seems, according to the analysts, the pundits who watch the Supreme Court, they say it's likely that law is going to be struck down.
Yeah,
is that what you mean? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, that's very interesting. I'm talking about. And, my whole thing is that, folks are saying that, it's murder, they killed the child, which I agree. The outside religion and stuff, when, and here's my take outside religion and whatnot. I mean, it all comes down to a person, controlling themselves as far as we all know, as far as controlling themselves sexual-wise, because, we all, into situations where we get babies and all some I won't go get an abortion. I mean, and then we expect the government.
No, but the thing is, see, the issue is that it's legal. Roe v. Wade the Supreme Court has said that abortion is legal. So, regardless of your views on it, everyone has their view. It's a legal procedure, and it's highly contested.
It's legal,
mm-hmm.
But what I'm saying is we expect the government to support to offer ways out of our situations. It's like opting out, It's like you were saying earlier.
Well,
it's like opting out.
When black students were trying to integrate schools, for example, it was constitutional for them to go into those schools, but the tradition was for them not to. A long tradition, just like long tradition against abortion, and so the government had to intervene. They sent troops because the tradition was so strong. People were so opposed to this constitutional legality that the government had to send troops to enforce it. The government often does that when it is seeking to enforce certain kinds of constitutional principles that go against traditional practices.
Yeah, okay. Well, I see it. Just that, I think that, I think it's just personally murder, and I just think that we want to fuss up because we want the government to support our ways, our situations and stuff like that. That's my thoughts on that.
All right, my brother. Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate it. Brother Aaron. All right, let's go to George. Hey, George. Good evening. How are you, sir?
Okay, how you doing, Salim?
I'm doing well, man.
That's good. I just wanted to, I was rather concerned about the issue that they brought up about Martin Luther King and, with the white woman and that. And I had heard about that years ago when he was at Crozer Theological Seminary.
Yes, sir.
But, that and that probably meant nothing because, Salim, I think you can remember back during the doing the whole civil rights struggle, man. There was a lot of cats that was in there just for that.
A lot of people said, the cultural nationalists used to blame the Panthers. They said
right.
The only reason you want to be a Panther, man, is because you got all these Panther Debs, all of these Panther groupies.
Exactly. But my thing of it is, I just touched on that. But here's the thing, man. Here's a 26-year-old individual, 26 years old. And, I just have a problem with people expecting, he was a man like you and I and everybody else. And the thing about it is, what made it so different, and I don't care what he did with his personal life and outside of his marriage, this man had death threats for 13 years every day of his life, multiple death threats. You know what I mean? Look at the stress that he was under.
For real.
That's a thing, man. That's really crazy.
Yes, it is, my brother. Yeah, I didn't want to. I didn't want to go here so quickly, but a lot of psychologists, sociobiologists, specifically, they say that the impetus toward achievement is for more access to the gene pools.
Yeah.
That's our biological impetus.
Right. I've heard that. Of course. Man, I tell you.
And that's why they say that power is the greatest aphrodisiac. Right?
That's right. That's right. And actually, I have heard that even top CEOs of these people, you'd be surprised at what kind of lives they live. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. So it's, I just didn't like, and I'm not saying that no one was trying to besmirch the gentleman, but I just get back and put things in context. He was 26 years old. And plus, a lot of things happen because of your environment. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
And, you can associate with certain people. I remember when I went to school, man, when you're a small number and these people all around you, what do you expect? You're going to get involved. Mm. Doesn't mean you're going to marry them.
Well, I know, the people in the service, GIs, often have that problem, especially black GIs, when they go to foreign assignments. Us in Germany, for example.
Yeah.
The only choice we had were Fräuleins or dependents, which means either the wives or the daughters of our fellow GIs. And
right.
And so, there's not much of a choice if you want to, stay moral in any kind of sense, or at least if you want to avoid any kind of serious complications on the base. So yeah, man. And sometimes that's the only choice you have.
Yeah. Okay, I just wanted to get that little part off my chest and go ahead and enjoy the show.
Yes, sir. Thank you, George. Appreciate it, brother.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. George is talking about issue came up last Wednesday about Dr. King's alleged sexual promiscuity, that he allegedly had liaisons with some white women. I've seen rumors of it and all of that, but it really has never interested me that much. But it does interest others, and to some it even disqualifies him as some for leadership. And George was saying that in his mind it does not disqualify him. Let's go back to the phones. Kevin, good evening. How are you, sir?
Good evening, Brother Salim, and happy 45th birthday.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel pretty good myself too, man. Today is I did my 10K for a King holiday, and I did it under an hour, so I feel good.
Oh, man, that's a very high goal that you set for yourself, brother.
Well, yeah, I've been working at it.
All right.
And also best wishes on Sister Flotus. Her birthday party is today. And isn't it hard to believe that she got an AARP card?
It is kind of hard to believe, but she's a good advertisement for taking care of yourself so you can look good and be vigorous at 50.
Mm-hmm. That whole Let's Move campaign has really done some wonders, especially for our kids. So she needs to be commended on that.
I think so.
The whole obesity thing and the fact that she's working really hard with the military families.
That's an important issue. The obesity thing is extremely important that we give so much shrift to, and it's one of the most important things. Really, one of the most important issues in our lives, man, is the way we eat, the way we are destroying ourselves with our diets.
Exactly, and it's running some of our medical bills up too. Thank God we got. We don't even need to get started on that. But a lot of our health issues could end with the way the things we decide to put in our mouths. Now, on the way to the party, Brother Salim, I know that Brother Barack is hoping that the Honorable Reverend Jeremiah Wright ain't DJing at that party. Because I'm thinking that the first two songs he's going to have is probably War and Love Drones.
You heard the good Reverend critique the president?
Yeah. I did hear him. Yeah, I thought that was.
What did you think? Did you think he was on point?
Well, he was.
Yeah.
He was. I don't think the president will get a pass with me for the use of the drones. Now, I do understand that the moment something happens, he's going to get a lot of screaming and hollering. The same way he's going to face a lot of opposition and pointing and Monday morning quarterbacking. If had he went in immediately and tried to curtail the NSA. But better late than never. And I think that the safeguards that he's putting in place are probably just Band-Aids.
Yeah, that's what the experts say, that they're not really substantial changes. And they could be. There's a possibility they could be, but it would have to be Congress that does it.
Right. There you go. And Congress is not going to want to do that because no one wants anything to happen. And now your opposition can say, "Ha, see, he was soft on that. We needed those programs, and he voted to curtail them or end them." So I was thinking about. Before I hit my other point, you mentioned something about Nigeria, and that must be a run on carpenters to build closets because there's going to be a lot of people got to jump back in the closets in Nigeria.
Jump back and kiss myself. Right.
Yeah. I got to ask you this, brother. I know how Coretta Scott felt about the.
We shouldn't be like that. It's really not funny, man.
I know it's not funny.
It's tragic, you know.
But it's backwards.
It is absolutely backwards, man. It really is. But I think it's a reaction. And see, it's so the dynamics of social engineering or of social evolution are so complex that. Because Nigeria is not ready, I don't think, for these kinds of ideas, these concepts of flexibility of sexual roles and blah blah blah. And if they feel that they're being forced to adhere to them, that we're going to have these kind of drastic reactions. I think these backlash reactions, and that's unfortunate.
Okay, so I guess all the gay people over in Nigeria and Uganda and any other African nation that don't want to grow up is going to have to redo the whole civil rights movement again.
Yeah,
which
right,
which brings me to a question I had to ask you. How do you think Dr. King would stand on that? Now I know how Coretta Scott stood on the whole issue of homosexuality. What do you think Dr. King's stance would be? And
I think he would be aligned with the LGBT movement as an expression of liberation. Another group, formerly excluded group, being included. That the motion of the American enterprise was to become increasingly inclusive.
Mm-hmm. I concur with you on that one. I just think it would be hypocritical if Dr. King came out and in opposition of that, because I'm one who believes it's a human rights issue, brother. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whether I like the lifestyle or not, it's a human rights issue first and foremost with me.
Yes, sir. I think that has to. I don't see any other conclusion you could come to that it is a human rights issue.
And I like what George had to say about Dr. King when he led the Montgomery Improvement Association, the MIA. He was 26 years old. Mm-hmm. Now, let's see who's 26 or who. Let's see. Jay-Z, he was 26. What was he doing? What was Biggie Small doing at 26?
I don't think Biggie Smalls made it to 26.
Oh, he didn't?
No.
Okay, let's see. What's that other dude with the grill in his mouth and his sister pants on?
Lil Wayne.
Yeah, Lil Wayne, the one with the gold, silver mouth and his sister pants on.
You mean silver platinum, brother?
Platinum, okay.
Platinum
and platinum grill and some leopard skin pants that his sister would wear. and got the nerve to have.
That's a sexist comment, brother. Just because it's an animal skin, that there's no gender. That's not a gender-related piece of attire. Anybody can wear.
Anybody can wear skinny jeans.
Yes, sir.
That my sister would probably wear. I won't though. But anyway, my point was that they're 26, so we expect a lot from a 26-year-old king.
Yeah, you're right, man. I agree, and we often forget, I think, how young he was
when
he started all of this. Because
it's amazing to watch his maturity.
Man. He dressed like a grown man all the time with those hats and stuff.
Yeah.
So he looked kind of prematurely, middle age or something. But we do forget how young he was, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I've just been sitting around, brother, contemplating on what King would be doing, saying about certain issues. The whole LGBT issue was one I contemplated. And also what he would probably be, what his stance would be on immigration. I was thinking about that one.
Mm-hmm. What do you think it would be?
On immigration?
On immigration.
That's a tough one. That's a real tough one because of. But I do know that.
But he was, him and Cesar Chavez, man, they were real tight. They had a close alliance, so he probably would have been down whatever Cesar Chavez was down with.
But then, what about the whole labor and wages issues? And people were talking about immigration, or at least undocumented immigration, driving down wages.
They probably would have finessed that in some way. No, I think he would have been with that movement too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I needed a little help on that one because I was actually struggling with that one. Yeah. But I did not struggle with the rap issue. I already know where he's standing with that.
With the what?
With the whole rap issue and the denigration of
women,
and the.
Yeah, he would have been outspoken in opposition, I think.
I think he would have been appalled by it, especially the inherent violent nature of it. Mm-hmm. Some of the lyrics.
Well, I think he would have been. I think he would have brought some nuance to it, though, man. He would certainly denounce the violent lyrics, but I think he would try to link it to the violent life that a lot of these cats had to lead.
Okay, and then I
think he would make that connection.
Yeah, I did filter that through that speech he gave in California.
Yeah, when he said that he can no longer condemn the violence among white people until he condemns the prominent purveyor of violence on the planet, which was his country.
Right, and that would be this country.
That's right,
America.
Yes, indeed.
And my last one, brothers, what do you think that his stance would be on the whole prison industrial complex?
Oh man, he would be with Michelle Alexander. He would probably have written the foreword to her book.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I think he would be appalled by it.
Yes, sir.
And it's just amazing that we haven't come together in unity and did something about it. It's high time that we do, though. Yes, but I was wondering what type of catalyst we need. Do we need something like the Emmett Till situation, or in the for instance, the bus boycott. Mm-hmm. It was so apparent that something had to be done. You could galvanize around something that was apparent, that was so obvious and overt. Mm-hmm. We don't so much have that. I mean.
Well, we do, but it hasn't been highlighted in the same way, because there was a time when we didn't think that was overt either until it was seriously highlighted by a campaign to make sure it was overt. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that you pointed to one of the most overt discrepancies of today, and that is the criminal justice complex, man. It's so unfair, so overtly unfair, and apartheid oriented. That you know, when we're going to look back on this, I think, and we're going to be appalled that we allowed this to happen.
You're right. You know, what's our level of outrage? At what point? I look at the numbers and I'm like, I don't know why we're not in the streets.
That's right, brother.
Absolutely. I really don't. Yes, but I don't know, brother. I'm going to listen to the rest of your comment. And once again, happy 45th birthday.
All right, Kevin. Thank you,
Have
brother.
a great show.
Thank you, man. All right. Let's see who's next here. Oh, my brother, Maceo. Yes, sir. How are you, sir?
Hey, Salim, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well, my brother.
Great. First of all, let me just say hello to your WVON listeners and Woods, Albert, of course. Salim, and also let me compliment Brother Jay on that superlative history on ancient Kemet when he's talking about the gods and goddesses. Yes, and they're being co-opted by
on Wednesday when he was,
by the Greeks and by the Greeks essentially and the Romans, but very well done. But Salim, in regards to Dr. King, this relationship it was just a friendship, and it was allegedly supposed to be something deeper than that, but as I say, allegedly, and if it happened at Crozer, then, as you were saying, you and Brother George were saying, it was purely innocuous, harmless, and that he would have been about 21, 22 years old. So, but anyway, you know, it's not worth a hill of beans.
Not at all, brother. Not at all.
Essentially. And also I would like to say belated birthday to the great Muhammad Ali, born on January 17th, 1942. And I thought that First Lady Michelle Obama's birthday was also on the 17th. And she was born in 1964 here in Chicago. And then also Alonzo James Kennedy Jr., his birthday is January 20th, 1947, born in New York. You know that guy?
Yeah, I do know that guy. Yes, sir.
Yes, but a.k.a. Salim MuWakkil.
Yes, sir.
So happy birthday to you, my brother.
Right, okay. Everybody want to jump me up. I got another day, or 2 more days.
Yeah, but that's all right. I mean, but see, this
is your chance. Yes, sir. Thank you, brother.
No, but you see, if you were coming on Monday, then we could say it officially on Monday.
That's correct.
But we want to just butter you up right now.
I accept the butter, brother. I accept the brother.
Okay, but if I may, if you would allow me to, the night belongs to. If you allow me to say a few words about the great David Eli Ruffin, whose birthday is tonight.
David Ruffin, yes, sir.
May I say a few things about the brother?
Go ahead.
Okay, of course, born on January 18th, 1941 in Why Not, Mississippi, near Meridian, Mississippi, and he was a part of a singing family. His father, Reverend Eli Ruffin, his mother, Orphea Ruffin, his siblings, Quincy, Jimmy, Rita Mae, Rosetta, all formed a gospel group, and they essentially opened for the likes of Mahalia Jackson, the Five Blind Boys of Mississippi. He also sang at the Mount Salem Methodist Church, and he left Mississippi around 14 with the idea of becoming a minister himself. He replaced Johnny Taylor as a singer in the Soul Stirrers, and then ultimately came to Detroit under the guardianship of Eddie Bush and Dorothy Helen. Was introduced to Gwen Gordy and Billy Davis, and ultimately he started doing some work with Motown, but packing records with Marvin Gaye for Anna Records in 1957. And let's see, in 1958, he made his first song, You and I, and then ultimately started singing with the Voice Masters, and he made a song called I'm in Love, and then Mr. Bus Driver, Please Hurry, Knock You Out with Love. How about that? And then ultimately when Elrich Bryant got out of hand with the Temptations, he was brought on the scene as the one of the lead singers of the Temptations. His very first recording was on January the 9th, 1964, and then it was all uphill from there. My Girl, Ain't Too Proud to Beg, I Wish It Would Rain. One of my favorites, Loneliness is what I believe. Loneliness is what makes me believe that it's you that I need, or something to that effect. But tremendous talent. And as you know, Jimmy Ruffin was being considered as a replacement for Elvis Bryant as well. But David Ruffin had the edge because he was the better dancer, the overall better entertainer. So happy birthday to David Ruffin, and kudos to Stephen McQueen. 12 Years a Slave is racking up all types of Best Picture awards.
Yes, it is. It got, Golden Globe Award. Although a lot of people were angry that it was the only thing that got an award at the Golden Globes. The only thing that was black oriented or connected to black people. But hey, what can you say about it?
And then the Critics' Choice Awards too. It was nominated as Best Picture, and Lupita Nyong'o won as Best Supporting Actress. And Salim, it's a lot of people nominate. Well, she was awarded. They won the awards the other day.
Which one?
The Critics' Choice Awards.
Okay.
Yeah, they won Best Picture and then Best Supporting Actress. But the story is about a free man, as you know, that was thrust into slavery. Slavery is the backdrop, and Steve McQueen does it so well. But it's like a microcosm to me of what the slave trade was all about. You had free people in Africa being kidnapped and thrust into this brutal institution of slavery. It's a story that needs to be told, in my estimation.
All right. Absolutely. Thank you, my brother.
Okay. Have a great day. And Salim, one more thing I want to ask you. Have you ever heard of a book called Return to Glory by Joel Freeman?
Yes.
What is your assessment of that?
I'm not even. I don't. Give me a quick synopsis of the
book.
Of the subject. Return to Glory.
It's supposed to be a book on our history, talking about black history from the beginning of ancient Kemet, from the great civilizations in Africa, all the way through to the great.
I haven't read it. But I'm familiar with it. A lot of people I've heard it discussed, in fact, recently, because people were criticizing its paternity, that it had a Jewish author, and trying to deal with issues that were contentious in many cases.
Okay, would you tell?
I haven't read it, though.
Oh, you haven't? Okay, all right. But would you tell Alonzo James Kennedy, I said, Junior, I said, happy birthday.
It's actually not Junior. It's not Junior.
Oh, it's not Junior?
No, it's not.
Well, Alonzo...
They got that wrong.
Well, Alonzo James Kennedy.
Well, he's gone, man. He's been gone for a long time, brother.
Yeah?
All right, man.
All right. Happy birthday, Salim.
Thank you, sir. All right, let's go to Anita. Anita, hey, how are you, sister?
Salam alaikum. Walaikum assalam. How are you?
I'm well.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine. I want to start off today by saying I heard Janet Jackson married the guy from the Middle East. I just heard it, so it may have been some time ago, but I just heard about it. So I'm happy about that. And, only that maybe their Muslim influence will get more understood. Also about Nigeria.
She's also a billionaire, so that doesn't hurt.
Pardon me?
She's also a billionaire, so that doesn't hurt.
Yeah, that's it, Muslim influence, however way it works.
Yeah, right.
But I thought that was cute. But anyway, Nigeria, I thank God for them. And Russia's kind of protesting some things with the Olympics, too, about the gay rights. But I'm glad there are men that are, still for what is pretty much natural for recreating the human race. I mean, I understand gays may feel emotions may be intellectualized with men, but there's still some other issues that biologically, that go along with the emotions that I think they overlook, and I'm glad Nigeria, as African American, are very good with women, and they're not just, what they say sexually, but I think mentally, men work with, the black male work with the female to educate her on worldly affairs very well, and I wish other men would do that instead of trying to oppress their women. So I'm glad that Nigeria is standing up, and I'm glad that Russia is saying something also.
So okay, so you're down with these movements against a gay marriage and same-sex
I didn't
relations?
say no. I'm glad there are men that still understand biologically emotions. It can't be intellectualized, and you have to consider biology, or else we won't be here.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I mean there's got to be. I understand the intellectual argument. Okay,
all right, thank
but
you.
anyway.
All right, Sister Anita understands, and we will be right back after this. And we are back. It is 8:09. Salim MuWakkil here on the 18th of January. Seasonal weather out there. Little snow in the air, but not too bad. Not too bad. Okay, let's go back to the phones. Brother Omar. Good evening, my brother. How are you?
Oh, Brother Salim, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, man.
Oh, Brother Salim, before I say anything, brother, I know you said your birthday is on Monday, so I just wanted to grant you a happy early birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, Brother Salim, I just enjoy listening to the callers.
Yes, sir.
They're just, you have such a diverse personalities. However, I can feel their passion on particular issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have to say that you probably have the most intelligent listening audience on the radio today.
That's my contention as well, my brother.
And I'm just saying that across the country, with all other radio stations and radio hosts. Brother Salim, if I was a pimp on the corner and I had about 20 women working for me, and if I happened to see a crime that was committed or someone get killed, would you say that I have a moral obligation to say something about it?
If you were a pimp?
Yeah, if I was a pimp, if I was a scum of the planet Earth,
mm-hmm.
and I had 100 women that brought me money, and if I happened to see a murder or a crime that was committed, and I'm on the corner talking to one of the women that work for me, would you say that even though that I have that particular lifestyle that many people may not be in agreement with, I have a moral obligation to speak up about that crime if law enforcement or someone asked me about it, what happened, what did I see, who was involved, which direction did they go? Would you say I have a moral obligation?
Yes, sir. I would probably come to that conclusion.
Yeah. And I would agree also with you that I do, and I'm saying that to say that I don't know much about Dr. King's personal life, the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I don't know much about his personal life other than alleged things that I have heard.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, that man in his heart, based on what I've read, what I've studied about him, he felt he had a moral obligation to do something about the issues that were not just affecting this country domestically, but issues that was affecting the world abroad. And the death threats and the stress and what he went on, I mean, the average person would just break under that kind of pressure.
I think so.
You pick up a newspaper and people are just saying horrible things about you. That's not true. Blatant lies. And you have somebody like Hoover, who was purposely working in the CIA, working with newspapers to put disinformation in to discredit Dr. Martin Luther King among other civil rights leaders and individuals, as you know, of the Black Power movement.
That's right.
So that kind of stress and that kind of pressure, like I say, brother, the average person would break under that pressure. So I say, regardless of whatever Dr. King's personal life was, whether he liked white women or whether he liked many women, whatever he was into, to me, that's his personal life. I look at the man for what he stood up for in the face of the hostility and the violence that he had to deal with. I take my hat off to the man. You know.
Yes, sir.
I really do.
It always, it often, I don't say always, but it often it comes to this kind of a question with significant people throughout history. Do their flaws somehow, overpower whatever good they've done? Or does it outweigh their good? And so there's always been these kinds of attempts to make some sort of balance, weigh their efforts in some way. But I agree with you, man. And all of the historical accounts of significant men seems to indicate that most of them had some character excesses here and there. And so you take the bitter with the sweet. Well, we're all human beings.
Right? And that's it, Brother Salim. I mean, even some people that some of us grew up with,
yes,
that
sir.
we tended to look up
Absolutely,
to. Maybe
brother.
there was a father, maybe an uncle, maybe even an aunt or a mother.
Absolutely.
I mean, nature is smarter than all of us.
There you
And
go.
I'm gonna tell you, brother, straight up. I mean, I'm not a phony. If you put a beautiful woman in front of me, and if she smells good enough, regardless to what her so-called nationality is, depending on what kind of mood I'm in, I would talk to her.
If she smells good enough, huh?
Well, I mean, hey, I'm a big. That's just I'm a big person on smell. I mean, a smell can brighten up a mood, or a bad smell can kill the whole.
You're right, brother.
Kill the whole mood itself.
I would say you have an olfactory orientation.
Oh,
right.
Yeah, and just lastly, Brother Salim, you mentioned about the president and the pressures of being the custodian of the empire.
Yes, sir. And
I guess it would be safe to say that governments, whether it's someone that's external enemy, or even an enemy inside the gates that uses some form of false flag terrorism against its citizens to rally the people up behind supporting the government.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Absolutely, man.
Yes, you see, because I have noticed, just through research and observation, that whenever the empire starts to crumble, when it starts to fall at the seams, the government always uses this kind of national security state apparatus against its citizens to try to hold the empire together. Case in point, look at the Spanish Inquisition. When the Spanish Empire began to crumble, the government turned that whole state apparatus back on its public to get the people in line to support the government.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, it's a truism of statecraft. Use an enemy. If you have nothing unites a society like a fearsome enemy. And not only does that unite the society, but it inclines it in the right wing direction.
Yeah, either natural, if that enemy is manufactured.
Oh, absolutely.
Like from the George Orwell's 1984, Goldstein.
Like Al Qaeda.
Yeah, absolutely. They can fund Al Qaeda and yet tell the public that they're the enemy.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, sir.
So
absolutely, my brother. Thank
you,
man.
The world we live in, right?
That's exactly what it is, Omar. Thank you, my brother.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to my man, brother Shelby. Hey, Hotep Shelby, how are you, sir?
Hotep. I'm glad you greeted me with the right words, brother Salim. If you would have said something else, you and I would have been sparring.
Okay,
would have been fighting. Hey, listen, brother.
I think I got you. I think I got your belief system.
Look, if I find something better than Hotep, I'm gonna throw Hotep out.
Okay. All right, brother.
I'm stuck on that. Hey, brother
sir.
Salim,
You
mentioned this James Clapper, the director of national intelligence.
Yes.
I want to add some clarity.
Okay.
He not only lied to Congress, but he did it under oath. And the last time I checked, that's called perjury.
Absolutely right, my brother.
Now, brother Salim, what we have here is a group of laws that apply to a certain class of people and a group of laws that doesn't apply to another class of people.
And it's very clear, isn't it? I mean,
the dangerous thing is that there's a class of people that could get away with murder. That's the dangerous part of it. And it starts right at the White House with this leader called Barack Bush.
We used to be
right there. It starts with him.
We used to be very enamored with this, 007, right? License to Kill, right?
Yeah. Now, the other thing, Brother Salim, I know you mean well when you say this, man, but when you say we, you say we invaded Afghanistan, we killed Libya's president. We now, Brother Salim,
I said that, huh?
Yes, sir, you do say it, and I'm not, and it's nothing against you, but I always say those government criminals did that, not me. They may have done it in our name, Brother Salim, but we had no decision whether
so
they
you think it's
do that or not.
You think it's important that I maintain that distinction?
You have to make that distinction, Brother Salim.
You can't accept it. You can't accept it as a conventional kind of vernacular,
Hey, Brother Salim, you good with those words, man.
I'm just asking, man. I'm asking the question, Joe.
You know why? Because I went back to that Malcolm X speech, and Malcolm X got real pissed off at black people saying we, and they say they don't even let you in the plant, and we astronauts went up into space. So you should you should make a distinction between the criminals.
I don't know if it's that important, man. But I hear you, brother. I'll try to be.
Okay, I know how I do. Now, Brother Salim, I gotta tell you,
yes, sir.
As a person that's a researcher to the extreme, I know when you and Omar say something like these alleged things, you say that alleged, in references to some indiscretions for Dr. King. Now, Brother Salim, I'm just telling you that when I read Abernathy's book, Walls Come Tumbling Down, which was written in 1989, then I get the declassified documents on Dr. King, which came out after his book was published. There's some commonality between the two that is undeniable. I'm not going to go into too much more details, but there's some commonality between two independent sources that will change your.
Mike Dyson put them together in his book, man. That he did on King, which was pretty.
Yes, sir. I'm familiar with Dyson's book.
Don't you think it combined those two accounts in a way that was credible?
I didn't look at his sources. Maybe, but let me say this last thing, Brother Salim.
Okay.
Dr. King said that I think America must see that riots do not develop out of thin air. And he said certain conditions continue to exist in our society which must be condemned as vigorously as we condemn the riots. So he was saying that the conditions which caused the riots or rebellions, whatever terminology people want to use, you have to look at the conditions that created. And Brother Salim, I looked at the national budget. 20% of the national budget is for defense and the military. 2.77% is for education.
Man, oh man.
So, Brother Salim, what is that creating?
Absolutely.
That's creating a group, a country that's not well informed, that's not educated,
but deeply militarized.
Militarization.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
That's exactly what we're up against, man. And we got to stop these white European ministers from running over the whole damn world, man. That's the only game in town.
Yes, sir.
That's the only game. Ain't nothing else happening.
Let me just press you on that. What do you think is the way to do that?
Hey, Brother Salim, I'm glad you asked me. I'm glad because I got a plan.
Okay.
We get a plebiscite. We invite all interested parties. We have a group of meetings all around the country, and we come up with a consensus. What are we for? What are we against?
Mm-hmm.
You have one in Chicago. I have one in Louisiana. The brothers in California have one. Then we have a national meeting. That's it. That's the plan.
Mm-hmm.
We have to have a plebiscite where we come together and voice all of our concerns and come up with a prioritization.
Kind of a national agenda?
That's what I'm for, man.
Okay. All right.
That's what I'm for. Okay.
That sounds reasonable, Shelby.
Hey, happy birthday, man. I wish you many more, man.
Thank you, Shelby. Appreciate it, brother.
Have a nice evening.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Brother Shelby. Always very, very interesting information. Brother Sadiqi. Hey, man. How are you, sir?
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
Happy upcoming Black Day, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir. Let me just say, well, first of all, I had a question, then a comment. I was in a meeting last Wednesday with the show, and so I missed a good piece of it, and I was, curious as to how you can access a copy of that show. I'd like to listen in because I heard that you were talking about Dr. King and what have you, so I didn't know if that was something that you could share with me or...
You mean on Wednesday?
Yeah, your show you had on Wednesday,
Yes,
right?
sir.
This past Wednesday.
I think, you can get it on, just Google it, man. If you Google Salim MuWakkil, whatever date Wednesday was, it'll probably come up YouTube. YouTube.
Okay, done deal.
Uh-huh.
Okay, let me just say that I was really intrigued, Brother Salim, when you said that, my position in terms of the assassination of Dr. King and it being a conspiracy by the government. I was intrigued, man, by the fact that
I gave that assignment to not gave it to it, but Cliff Kelly's producers. I think they came up with something. I didn't hear the show where they discussed it because it was hard for me to nail somebody down, who had some expertise on it.
I see.
So I think Cliff took care of it.
Yeah, well, I was intrigued by your comment that Oliver Stone, you said, has pulled out as a director of the movie?
Yes, sir, he has.
And what I'm saying is that no one, not knowing him literally, but Oliver Stone is one of those white guys that likes to put it out there. Mm-hmm. And I'm convinced, along with your theory, that he probably wanted to include the whole nationalistic aspect of the evolution of Dr. King after having met with Honorable Elijah Muhammad and others, that Oliver Stone, in all likelihood, wanted to put out the truth about the assassination of Dr. King in the film. And
I think you're probably right. He hinted that was one of his ambitions.
Because, the bottom line is that, like we said before, the information is out there that it was a conspiracy by the, and so I just have a sense that Oliver Stone said, this is what I want to do, and I want to tell the truth about the assassination, that it wasn't James Earl Ray. And seeing as how the information is out there, and like I said before, for your listeners, both Salim, they can Google Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. assassination trial transcripts, and everything's there in terms of the trial in 1999, where the jury rendered a verdict that it wasn't James Earl Ray and that it was the U.S. government. And I really encourage folks.
You know what, Sadiqi? Tell me
yes,
this,
sir.
Man. Why do you think? Like I've been trying to contact people and track down folks who could make the argument about that trial and say that why don't we pursue this? It's very difficult to get folks, even those who are very very deeply enamored with Dr. King's message and want to carry his program on. It's difficult to get them to deal with the assassination in any kind of serious way, and people who do have information on it, it's hard to contact them. So what do you think that is? Have you had any success in finding people who had this kind of deep information on the trial?
Well, let me just say, Brother Salim, that myself and my colleagues, we've been on a campaign since 2000, since we got a copy of the transcript in terms of sending letters to the administrations of Clinton, W. Bush, and Obama, calling on them to instruct their justice departments to establish a special grand jury to investigate the case and bring the real perpetrators to justice. And we get the formal letter, thank you for your interest. The interesting aspect is that the very piece that you're talking about, my latest blog entry that I did was that African/Black people are in fear of the truth about the assassination of Dr. King. And interestingly, you've got a lot of folks who have said that they know that the bottom line of that was the government. It can be Reverend Sharpton, Reverend Jackson, Andrew Young, even Martin Luther King III. Ironically, he came to Boston a few years ago and did a presentation. In fact, it was at he was the featured speaker at the King Breakfast, which was going to be this coming Monday here in Boston. And he came to a church. And so he asked if there's any questions. And when the pastor of the church saw my hand go up, he rushed over very quickly and said, "Please, Sadiq, don't bring up the assassination." I mean, so
really?
There seems to be this fear that black folk have. I don't know if it's the fear of the fact that you've got to strike at the government to seek out the truth. I'm at a loss as to what's going on. In fact, one time, several years ago, like I said, we've been working on this for over a decade, just hoping by putting the information out on a constant basis that at some point it would stick and black folk would unite and say, let's really deal with this. I remember I was at a forum one time, and so what happened, in fact, it was the National Black Legislative Caucus. They met here in Boston, and they actually passed something at their conference supporting our call for the special grand jury. And I'll never forget this. Dick Gregory walked up to me and said, "Well, brother, do you know what you're getting into?" And I looked at him and I said, "Well, yeah." But I was really stunned that Dick Gregory would ask me that question because he has all that information. Right? So I don't know what the fear is in terms of bringing forth the truth.
Even Mike Dyson, man, who's done some serious investigation in this, and is very, if you talk to him, very skeptical, much like you, about the conclusion that James Earl Ray did it, but it's hard to get him to deal with, to speculate further than that.
They don't want to touch it. I don't know if it's a career. I know I was on a show one time with George Curry. Elite black journalist. Oh, yeah, George. And after I went through my little piece there, the person who was hosting the show, "George, what's your position?" "Well, I believe James Earl Ray did it." That was his response. And I'm saying to myself, I don't get it. And so I'm saying to myself, after over a decade of putting this information out and continuing to put it out and asking, particularly the black media, because when the 50th anniversary of the assassination of President Kennedy happened, the black media was all over it, talking about him being assassinated and all the conspiracy theories and what have you. But when it comes to Dr. King, it's like, there's a monument. We name streets after him. And there are folks who will be giving speeches and, putting out the accolades about Dr. King, which I respect. But at the same time, they have full knowledge of the truth, and they're not willing to pursue it. So I don't know if it's a self-interest thing, a fear thing, or whatever. The only thing that's going to make this happen, Brother Salim,
maybe is this, maybe Siddiqui is this, that they say, well, if the government did it, they've covered their tracks enough that we would just be bumping our head against the wall if we tried to make some charge stick.
Well, let me just say this, brother. Have you read the transcript?
I've read part of it, man. Yes,
okay.
Sir.
I've read that transcript so many times because each time I read it, I feel like I'm reading it for the first time because it's so stunning, because of the information's there. Like, the shooter was a Memphis police lieutenant named Earl Clark. Lloyd Jowers was the one who supplied the weapon. You had this mysterious Raoul, who was a CIA connection. You had Judge Joe Brown at the trial stating, as a ballistic expert, saying that without a doubt, the caliber of the weapon that was used to kill Dr. King did not match the caliber of the weapon that was in the possession of James Earl Ray. So it's not like it's speculation. The information is here.
What is Joe Brown saying? What is Joe Brown saying these days? Have you heard him?
Nothing at all. He only stated that in the trial based on the facts. He's not. No one's saying anything. And the thing for me, Brother Salim, I have the utmost respect for Dr. King. Might not agree to all his politics, but what gets me is when people approach me and they say, "Well, brother, you're obsessed with this thing." And I just looked at him and I'm saying, obsessed? I said, the minute there's some justice for the King family, I'm through with it. So it's not an obsession. I have a letter in my possession, Brother Salim, from Coretta Scott King before she passed away, thanking myself and my colleagues for all the work that we're doing to try to bring out the truth. And she said, my family has done everything we can with the trial, but we need the community to get justice for my husband and my family. And we sit back, and you've got Jews out here hunting down 100-year-old former Nazis, and we got the information in regards to who actually perpetrated this. I think it's because Jews
know that they will get result if they find out a former Nazi. If they discover a Nazi, they know that they can reap justice. I think people feel that if they find out more about the conspiracy behind Dr. King, there'd be nothing they can do, so they feel impotent anyway. That's my theory on why there's not that much. I think
they're inferior. Let me put it this way, Salim. Let's say that what you just stated is factual, but the bottom line is that does that mean you do not try? Because I don't think it is factual because of the fact that we know who did it. Earl Clark, the shooter, he's deceased at this point. Lloyd Jowers, who supplied the weapon, he's deceased. But there are others.
But there's a similar story with the kill of Malcolm X. The man who shot the gun is still walking around today, and a lot of people know who it is. You're talking about the brother just got released from prison because 3 brothers went to prison. Huh?
There's a brother who just got released who was involved.
Only the 2 brothers never were involved. The 2 brothers, only one of those.
Yeah, that's what they claim. Yeah.
Well, he said that the man who they caught with the gun, the guy they caught at Thomas Hager, the cat that they caught at the scene, he said that they had nothing to do with it. He named who had something to do with it, and they know who killed Malcolm. They know who shot the gun, but there's not a clamor to go after this cat, and a lot of people know who he is. But
shame on us, Brother Salim, because that's a reflection of our condition right now.
All right, man. I got you, Sadiq. It is a curious phenomenon that we don't we don't follow this through. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Take it. Right.
Yeah, I mean it is a kind of pretty strange to I mean, in a certain way you can understand it because people want, his past, blah blah blah. But as Siddiqui said, the Jews are still hunting Nazis in South America and putting them on trial. These cats could be 95 years old, and they go after them. They go all in, and yet we seem to be very willing to let these cats go. No accountability for a lot of atrocious things that were done. I wonder why. Mike, good evening. You're on the Talk of Chicago. How you doing, brother?
Hey, how you doing, Salim?
I'm well, Mike. How are you?
I want to get to why I called, but the word is called COWARD.
Coward?
That's why we're not interested. You had Brother Shelby talking about the word "our," referencing Malcolm.
Yes.
Well, it's really 3 words, Salim. We, us, and our, in the context of America. Mm-hmm. But I say that if you think you're part of we, us, and our, then I say go right ahead and think that. But the last time that I checked, white supremacy was not inclusive. Unless something has changed that I'm unaware of. Are you familiar with Michael Schur of Georgetown University?
The name rings a bell, man. I'm not.
Well, he's an adjunct professor at Georgetown University.
Mm-hmm.
and he has called for the assassination of President Obama. In fact, he worked with President Obama. He was the head of his Find Bin Laden committee.
Mm.
Does the name ring a bell now?
I'm not familiar with that development, man. Where can I read up on this?
Well, you can read the editorial board's response to him calling for his assassination in La Jolla, and you can get that online. All you have to do is just Google Michael Schur or La Jolla, and then put Michael Schur's name in the search engine, and it'll come up. And the board has basically said that they're in full support of his right to say, kill the president.
Interesting.
Yeah. You weren't familiar with that at all, huh?
No, I wasn't.
You know, I find that really interesting that a person of his stature, who was once an aide to the president, can make that kind of statement, and it's nowhere to be found unless you look for it.
I find it odd too, man, because I'm gonna check it out for real.
Well, you know what I don't find odd, Salim, is that what we generally get from our media is fluff.
Absolutely.
And garbage stuff.
You know,
because
correct.
they're really afraid to tackle issues that really have meaning. So we have things like, what's your favorite Christmas song? I find that to ask black adults, and it doesn't surprise me that you have people calling, well, my favorite Christmas song, grown-ass people, we getting stomped into the concrete. They got time to tell you what their favorite Christmas song is. That's amazing. That's why we catching hell all over the planet.
But you know, Mike, you know how our entertainment operates. Advertisers pay for it, and people like to be lulled to sleep, and they like distractions, and they like bread and circuses. It's always been the case.
Well, you know, speaking of advertisers, Salim, is it a good idea for advertisers who are across the board now saying that black media is ineffective in terms of what they want to do? They're saying that they can reach black people without involving black media. And of course, as far as I'm concerned, that sounds like a good business decision. Why should you spend money someplace where you've already spent money that's doing the same thing? But what I find really interesting is black media says to them that they have a special relationship with the black community and they should continue that relationship. I find that a bit disingenuous because the only relationship that I see that black media across the board has with the black community is one of contempt.
You think so?
Yes, I do. And I think that they will suffer for it because their only salvation is the people that they hold in contempt. Have a good day, Salim.
All right, Mike. Thank you. I don't know. I don't think the media holds black people in contempt. I think the black media is trying to convince white advertisers that in order to reach black people more effectively, they should go through the black media because the black media is much more immediate response to their concerns, and they feel much a better sense of empathy for the black media. And so people who advertise in that particular venue tend to get a good vibe attached to them. And I think that's what the black media is trying to sell to advertisers. But there's corruption implicit in all of this, or not so much corruption, but a sense of market domination, because as long as you depend on audiences to bolster your wealth or to determine the heaviness of your pocketbook, then you have to do things that are appealing to audiences. The more appealing you are to audiences, the heavier your pocketbook. It's kind of a natural equation, and so it's always a risk to be in front of your audience or to challenge your audience too much to make them uncomfortable or not quite distracted enough, make them feel too bad about the situation in the world, and they would turn to somebody else, to music. They want to dance. They want to while away their troubles rather than to get mired into them. And so, some media attempts to do that, and they get rewarded for that because the larger audience they have, the deeper their pockets. And so it's always a risk to be substantial because a lot of people don't want substance. They would rather have fluff. Rather than vegetables, we like candy, right? Back to the phones. Pam, good evening. You're on the Talk of Chicago. How you doing?
Greetings, Salim. How are you?
Greetings. I'm well. How are you, my sister?
I'm well, thank you.
Good.
You seem a little bit reluctant to accept the happy birthday.
No,
Salutation.
I'm cool. I'm all right. I'm all right with it.
Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, in that case, happy birthday.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And you are what some would consider a Capricorn, if that means anything.
I'm a cuspian. Actually,
Okay.
I'm right on the cusp of Aquarius and Capricorn.
Okay, got you. Some very interesting conversation, particularly with Siddiqui and Dr. Martin Luther King's murder.
Yes, ma'am.
And I tend to think, Salim, that the family was somewhat afraid to really pursue his murder. And I state that I remember reading when Malcolm X was killed, and his children, said that at that time, I think Betty Shabazz spent quite a bit of time raising her children with the Quakers.
Mm-hmm.
Had you read that, Salim, or were you familiar with that?
Uh-huh.
And that's because at the time she really didn't know who to trust.
That's right.
And she felt safe there. And I guess for us, imagine if you thought this government killed one of your family members.
Mm-hmm.
And what panic and fear must set in.
Yes.
So I'm thinking after the trial, I know Mrs. King was disappointed, and she cried out to the community that we do more. And certainly there are people who know more and won't come out. So I'm thinking it's because of fear. That doesn't excuse it, but I think that explains it. What do you think about that? You said you're having a very difficult time.
Yeah, it's hard, but see, because it's. I don't think it's fear. I mean, it may be,
I'm saying fear for their own lives and fear because it may impact their financial well-being in their careers negatively.
Yeah, that is a possibility. But
well, what do you think it is?
I see, but see, many of these people are the same people who risk their lives for the movement in other ways. You know what I mean? So they.
You mean early on in the movement?
Early on, so they've demonstrated a fearlessness that allowed them to be effective in other ways that you would think would allow them to be fearless in this way as well, similarly fearless. And that's really the only thing you can go by because it's hard to get people that fearless. It's hard to find people who are willing to give up stuff like that. And so generally the people you go to are those who have already done it, who have demonstrated, an ability to do it or a capacity to do it. It's not easy. And if these people won't give it up or are reluctant to pursue it, then it's very mysterious. The only thing I can conclude is that they figure it's a futile gesture. It would be futile to do anything because why? What's the sense? That's the only thing that's the conclusion that I come to. But fear is possible. I mean, you may be right that fear is possible, but fear is an obvious kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's like
sure, and maybe not fear for themselves, but then also their family.
Yes.
And the impact. Certainly, when you're younger, I think you do behave in a way that overrides the fear. Mm-hmm. And perhaps as you get older, and I'm not making any excuses because all of us need to bring whatever we can to bear to really find out who murdered Dr. King and hold them accountable. So, I mean, there are no excuses.
Mm-hmm.
But I know fear does paralyze people. However, we as a community, as Mrs. King asked us to help bring his murderers, to justice,
yes,
I think that's the least we could do for the King family.
I agree. When Siddiqui raised it, it forced me to acknowledge the fact that I had kind of let it go or said that it's really not that important or something. It's hard to even figure out exactly what was my attitude about it.
Sure, and same here. I understand you talk about it, but as a people, we may not necessarily move on it.
Mm-hmm. And then when I tried to get some information on it, I found a real reluctance on the part of people who I thought would be more forthcoming.
Wow.
And so I'm not quite sure what it is. I don't think it's fear.
You don't think it's fear?
I don't think it's fear because, as I say, the people that I'm
saying fear of consequences, what could happen.
Yeah, well, it's
impossible putting their own lives at risk.
And in fact, they have families now, and
mm-hmm.
that broadens them as a target. There are more places they can be hit, and so that might make them more reticent as well. So that could be it. But my intuition is that
pursue it nonetheless.
Yeah, we need to pursue it. Yes.
And then, so let me just also say, Salim, as I say every King's birthday, this needs to be more than just a day of service. And it does disturb me greatly that the president, all he wants to say is let this be a day of service. When Dr. King meant so much more and said so much more. Imagine if he didn't have to battle with the institutional racism and the hatred of white people, what he could have used his energy, his talent, and his education on, Salim.
Good point.
He had to exert, and so many other leaders and so many other black people had to exert and expend so much energy on fighting the racism and hatred of this country.
Well, you say, I don't know if you heard the show Wednesday, but I cited this study that for the first time had scientific evidence that racism actually ages black men faster than it does others.
And well, I wonder what does it do to black women? Where is that study?
I haven't seen that study. But that would be, I'm sure, even starker evidence of racism's toll.
Sure. And lastly, let me ask you about this piece. I want to move to the entertainment industry. Okay. Salim, it is important regarding the image that is put out by us, what we do in music, art, and many other streams of art and entertainment. And it seems to me that we just want to concede that the hip-hop community now dictates what is supposed to be an acceptable image for black people?
I don't think so. I don't think most people accept that equation. There was a study done by the youth. Sister Kathy Cohen at the University of Chicago, the Youth Violence Institute. So I forgot the exact name of the group that she heads, but they did a poll, they did a study of young people, and young people don't even think that hip-hop presents an accurate image.
But then I think we need to create institutions. I hope we don't have to reinvent the wheel, but we need to recreate these institutions that will mold, train, and create the type of young artists that we want. And I'm going back. Can Motown never be created again, Salim?
That's a good question.
That is the hub of our... I think we have too much talent to say that it couldn't.
Well, I think a better model, and it's rather ironic that this brother just recently passed, was Imam Amiri Baraka, who had an institute in Newark which was designed to do exactly that, to train
I can agree with that
in a certain way, to have them consider certain questions from a certain framework and develop a common agenda. So he was really trying to do that in the late 60s and early 70s.
And I think we can't get away from it. I think we have a lot of talented young people who want to be in the positive realm of music. I think we have a lot of talented people who, if they're exposed to jazz, would want to take it to the next level. So it is really incumbent upon us to do more to get those kinds of things in institutions in our communities. We let them just rip it from our schools, which was a big mistake.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you,
and
Pam.
now we're paying the price. Thank you, Salim.
All right. Thank you. Sister Pam, always insightful information. Brother Dwight Hotep, what's up, my brother?
One of the big problems is that capitalism, the capitalists have all the capital.
Yes.
And, they are funding the entertainment industry, so they, they pay the piper, so they call the tunes. But the reason I call mostly was I'm upset with the Imperial project manager once again, and that speech he gave. He just played his role to the hilt as the Imperial project manager, which I expect him to do. But I'm upset that the sheeple defend him no matter what he does. I have a colleague on the job who tells me that I should leave America if I have complaints, and just all
Is a black man who says that?
Yeah. This is the 32nd degree Mason that I've mentioned before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But when I listen to a news station in the morning, and they frequently have these stories about the national security state and the NSA, et cetera. And, he started out telling me he don't know and don't want to know. And I just blast him so much on that now he tries to engage a little bit, but he comes with this nonsense about, they're keeping him secure. Well, ain't nobody trying to bomb you, but I'm really off subject.
Well, he said he don't know and don't want to know. That's a hell of a statement, man.
It really is. But the speech, it kind of perturbed me because he spent the first half of the speech with this history of espionage. And he referenced Paul Revere, who came from a slaveholding family, and made him and those people in Boston who were slaveholders or profited immensely from Caribbean slavery, and he held them up to the dumb sheeple as some heroes to emulate.
Dwight, he has to pump the Myth America. Myth America has to be a part of the program because that's. Can you imagine him telling the truth?
Well,
what kind of poll numbers would he have the next day? How would his Democratic colleagues regard him now?
I don't care about his poll numbers.
They hate him now for Obamacare. Just think how they would hate him if he was to tell the truth about America.
Yeah, but that's the domestic agenda. His. The domestic political agenda, but his foreign policy agenda, they right there with him. And on this spying thing, a few of them, a few of the Republicans, the Rand Paul types, they speak against American foreign policy as it exists. But most of them regular old Republicans, they perfectly in agreement with the guy. But again,
on that issue, they're trying to torpedo the Iranian deal though pretty seriously, which is funny. Is a funny kind of exercise.
They want him to go to war, but he's been in so many wars, and he ain't got that much time left to make some kind of legacy other than the drone president. So all of that 07 campaign rhetoric about talking with Ahmadinejad and whomever and all that, he got to do a little bit of that, in order to be able to craft some type of a legacy, mythological legacy like, the rest of them. But I had planned to smoothly segue from the, from the speech, and I was going to tell how panel that he's going to empower to oversee the privatized mega data is going to be one of these regular blue ribbon panels that's all a bunch of right wingers, and they come down on the side of government because they're of the government. And he said something about there was no evidence of any illegality in this mega data thing. But see, he's narrow casting. He's making he's focusing the attention just on the mega data, which people, when they investigate, well, man, they're not even listening to our actual phone calls. Mm-hmm. They're only finding out who I talked to and who that person talked to, and if there's any links and any links to terrorism, as if that can't be that it's actually more fruitful than listening to the phone calls. Mm-hmm. And he tried to say that even the private sector is using. They're already using all of this mega data as if that
makes it all right. Uh-huh.
And it's terrible. But then the last point, on this illegality thing, they may not be using it in a way that people can easily say, point to a certain incident and say, oh, that's illegal. Look at what they're doing. But if you really study, yes, you can. When Bush and them and Comcast and all of the phone companies were spying on the American people, it was illegal. Oh, man. Okay.
You want to hold on, man?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
I'll wrap it up when I come back.
Brother Dwight will be back, and we will be back with him and others who are waiting to get in on this scintillating conversation. Keep listening. We will be right back. We're back. Salim MuWakkil here on the Talk of Chicago, 9/08, January 18th, 2014. Time is flying by. As it does, and as it is doing even faster. Back to the phones. Mr. Wells, good evening. How you doing, my brother?
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
I thought Brother Dwight was holding on.
Oh, Brother Dwight. Hold on, Mr. Wells. Hold on, man. I'll get to you next. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, brother. Go ahead.
All right. I'm gonna run out. I was saying that the warrantless wiretaps that the Bush administration did were illegal until it must have been around 2009 when it was time to come to court. And Barack Bush told Eric Holder, drop the case, and then it became illegal. Now, the NSA does have a program where they spy on people's pornographic viewing on the Internet. And that is the troublemakers. They want to do like they did Dr. King and, blackmail these people, stop being a problem or we're going to expose or discredit you. So all of our leaders who have these dalliances they could be more soldierly if they would not do this stuff and subject themselves to blackmail and weaken our struggle. Thank you for your indulgence, sir.
All right. Thank you, brother.
That's right.
So that's our brother Dwight's perspective that it's a sacrifice for the struggle to maintain a moral kind of probity, because you make yourself vulnerable to blackmail and whatnot if you participate in that. That's one of the arguments that a lot of us used to use in the movement during the Panther period and other periods of a kind of revolutionary activity. Brothers could not carry drugs in any business concerning the movement, concerning the organization. Anything that was business considered movement business, no drugs could be carried because it made you vulnerable to police harassment in ways that were unnecessary. And so there was a strategic purpose to be abstinent in terms of drug use rather than any kind of moral purpose in that sense. Brother Dwight makes a good point. That's another motive. That's another incentive to remain clean. Now, Mr. Wells, it's you, my brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. How you doing there, bro?
I'm well, man.
Quickly, Salim, I know we had some dialogue here, and I'm going to check in about this hypothetical co-op of King's legacy with the LGBT agenda. I'm of the position that would never happen.
You don't think
I
so?
like to share some things quickly. Now, you all are in Chicago. You're in Chicago, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you may have had some interaction with the late James Bevel. James Bevel passed away the last several years after going through some controversial judicial review, which if Brother Bevel did it, he did it. But Brother Bevel's commitment to the movement is such that the same thing with King about these indiscretions, and then Bevel's record. But I met Brother Bevel. And Brother Bevel was asked by King to come work on the SCLC. Bevel came here during the boycott movement. Bevel, in fact, Bevel was there in Memphis after the assassination. There was a minister that was here that's a bishop now that talked about, he remembered the night that King was assassinated at a boycott event here in Cincinnati over 12 years ago, and he said he remembered when Bevel was in the room with them, calming them down about King's death. I heard this one minister make this comment about Bevel. Then I got a chance to meet Bevel in a private conversation, and I interviewed Bevel. I mean, I posed questions to him. Same with Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth. King asked Fred Shuttlesworth, who had been doing work in Alabama, come join me in the SCLC. I'm here to tell you, and this is Mr. Wells in Cincinnati, I'm here to tell you and listen clearly. These guys, to my knowledge, never said King supported any gay movement back from 55 to 68. Never did. So to say hypothetically now what he would have done, I'm telling you, I talked to Bevel, talked to Shuttlesworth. In fact, Shuttlesworth did an ad here in Cincinnati that said gay rights is not civil rights. He said, I know I've been fighting for civil rights all my life. Shuttlesworth told people, even though the Republicans had co-opted him, but Fred said, look, we never fought for that. It was for black people, quote, unquote. So I'm not going to say stupidity, but it's quite suspicious.
Now, tell me this now, Mr. Wells.
Yes, sir.
Follow this logic for one moment, my brother.
Whose logic? Hypothetical logic or the record?
Follow this logic. Just make it this for now.
Yes, sir.
The concept, one of King's methods was to use the Constitution as a template for inclusion, as a rubric for the kind of legislation that promoted inclusion into the American polity, and if LGBT folks were attempting to gain inclusion, constitutional inclusion, don't you think he would support that direction?
Most definitely not, because he's gonna say, "Look, you gay white people have had."
What about gay black people?
No. Let's look who's leading that movement. Because, see, you're not advocating for black people to get justice on their sexuality. You're advocating on what they call the immutable characteristic of skin color. The sexuality can change. The immutable characteristic of that melanin amount, the maximization of melanin.
That's not the constitutional principle.
It
may be funny, but it's not the constitutional principle.
Well, look at Salim. I think people should be.
Do you agree? Do you think that it's a constitutional principle, or are you, or what? I mean, the constitutional principle doesn't mention melanin.
When I confront this argument just like I did, I said, let's go with the record. But I would like to say something. I want to move on quickly.
But I just want to, it seems, I may be wrong, but it seems like you're evading the question.
No, I'm not, because you're doing a hypothetical. I'm saying that brother's record.
I'm saying hypothetical. Hypothetically, the Constitution is creed, color, and other kinds of loyalties are not considered appropriate reasons for restricting constitutional protections from.
Well, here's the thing. Mm-hmm. In order to say you need protection, like I tell any other group, go out and prove harm for the last 400 years, where it was state sanctioned at the federal level and in the individual public subdivision levels, where you get the state's rights. Go and prove the record like every other protected class, where you had to show there was an exact federal code that ran from 1788 to 1808. And after that point, all state sanctioned.
Do Episcopalians have to prove that?
Yes, they do. Go and do it.
No, they don't. All they have to do is under the clause of religion, freedom of religion. They don't have to be specific and prove any kind of particular offense against them as Episcopalians.
Okay. Well, look. Okay, but can I would like to comment quickly on this assassination and justice, and then I got to give you a quick report about Ohio. Look, if we're talking about the assassination of King, I heard Malcolm and Siddiqui has done a wonderful job, and you know as well as anybody else how much Coakley researched the assassination of Dr. King, and Coakley's videos are still out there. And I used to ask Steve about that. I said, Steve, what was it about that? And you can go look at Steve's videos. When he would come here, I would ask Steve, and Steve did so much research about the assassin, and he did some legit, you know how Coakley was, and his videos are still on YouTube about confronting, I would like to Siddiqui, everybody else to hear this, were there any people who would be black beneficiaries if King was dead? Not about what white people would benefit from it. Is there any possibility that a black person could benefit from the death of King? Now, in the case of Medgar Evers, 63, Malcolm in 65, King in 68, there was a video, Salim, called "Who is Agent X?" This guy who was informing the Mississippi Sovereignty Committee, his last name is Bolden, Bolden, had worked for a Mississippi congressman and made a lot of money on some furniture sales. This Negro spied on King and was the agent of the Mississippi Sovereignty Committee, and I've been called to look up what his first name is because I'm from Mississippi. Last name is Bolden, Bolden. He was Agent X and was the one that told the Mississippi Sovereignty Committee where Medgar Evers was and gave the information over to buyer and dealer Beckwith. And that Negro might still be living. Now, Evers was killed. You can go look it up if you all want to go online. That it was a Peabody Award-winning article. Who is Agent X? The Negro's last name is Bolden. They had him coming out of a congressman's office in D.C. about 20 years ago on tape. So there are black beneficiaries to if black leadership should get readjusted by assassination. And Coakley talked a lot about that. But I'm saying even in the case of Medgar Evers, there were people who directly benefited from giving up intelligence on King's whereabouts. Now, this issue about the Jewish people going and chasing to the ends of the earth to get these Nazi Party perpetrators, that is only happening because the neo-Nazi globalists are allowing it to happen. The neo-Nazi globalists after World War II, who have had to admit that they co-opted and did some crazy things against some of the Jewish thinkers and scholars, namely Albert Einstein, some other ones, on the Manhattan Project. In order to get all their research, they said, now look, if you all are going to agree to work with like Arnon Milchan, who supports white supremacy, who we know was born in what's called Israel, these kind of people that I get on you all about by going to this damn movie, we know for a fact Arnon Milchan has co-opted with neo-Nazi white supremacist globalism. And they allowed him to do that. As long as you help us to be the biggest white supremacists from here forward, you can go hunt down all the old heads and get them.
All right, bro. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So that's the reason why it happens. The Jewish community has co-opted itself with neo-Nazi globalists. That's why they allow them to do it.
Thank you, sir.
Arnon Milchan.
All right, brother. Mr. Wells, let's go to Robert. Hey, Robert. Good evening.
How
You're
you
on the Talk of
doing?
Chicago.
Good evening. thank God for Maceo.
All right.
Yes, sir. You know, over in Boston, Siddiqui. Okay, it's just like I look at it like this. You look at a submarine. When they go out to sea, when they go down in the ocean, you don't know where they went, right? Okay. Yeah, when they got their orders to go to the bottom of the ocean, sail out there, do anything, sit there for a month. Okay, now I look at it like this. That stuff so wrapped up like a coil. You don't know who. Okay, gay is a Hoover. Now he sports around at night in a little pretty gown. All right.
How you know it was pretty?
Huh?
How you know it was pretty?
You know how them cats go. Well, I'm saying like this. They want to be fabulous.
Yes.
And you know what he did?
Fabulous, yeah. Probably fabulous. You're right about that.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Everybody, he liked white women. Dr. King liked or didn't. Okay, they can print anything they want now. I don't get hung up in that because you know it's just the thing that they can put anything they want about that.
And they can even create a photograph and place people in there who didn't exist.
That's right. Did Mark Vesey, didn't he have some traitors against him?
Yes, they did.
All right. The Bolden, same thing. They got some black dude at the right now eating cheese and everything else about black folks.
Yes, sir.
And they telling everything. They tell everything they know. So I don't get hung up about that. I can't know nothing about it. First, Dr. King, I say it like this. Yeah, you can look at it, but that's far as it goes. I seen a movie one time where they were sworn to secrecy. In this movie, this guy, they told him, if we see you shoot somebody and you got all evidence against you, you still say no. You know, I look at another, some Sherlock Holmes stuff. There was a movie where when they light those candles, if the candle bleed, somebody would die at that table. But what the trick was, they had wax, blood in those waxy candles. And when that candle burned down, that blood got to come out. And the same thing about some of these pictures on the wall is trickery. They make the saint cry. That's wax or something that on a real hot day, that wax gonna melt, and here comes some water out of the tears of the saint's eye. So
well, you got to be a certain kind of person to believe that an inanimate object could produce human tears in the first place. So.
Right, and if you understand what people do and how they do it, I'm not content about it, but this government and those governments, they're prone to do things like that. You don't have an understanding about what they'll do any cause, anything to do their objective. You'll have you running crazy out here.
Yes, they will, my brother. Absolutely.
Well, I'll be. Happy birthday to you.
Oh, thank you, man.
And one more thing.
Yes, sir.
You remember the Black Strategy Center? That First Congregational Church on Ashland over there.
Okay, that's what it is. Black
it used
Strategy
to be
Center?
back in the 69 and 70.
Okay, I wasn't in Chicago then.
Okay, well I used to work over there with Calvin Lockridge, CTV, and all them guys.
Okay, wow, you were in the thick of things.
Yeah, I rubber showed them heavy hitters.
Yes, sir.
And right now, I know that if they ask for an organization, about a bunch of organizations in Chicago then, if they say Calvin Lockridge said, bring me Sally Johnson, bring me 5 people, whoever they called out, Miss Mack, over here in Kenwood, they'll have 112 people down in City Hall tomorrow. But today you have to beg people out there. And I'm so proud of the VON family down there the other day with Henry Morgan.
How was that good? Was that a good turnout?
Yes, it was.
Oh, beautiful.
Good turnout. You know who was down there?
Who's that?
The old Warriors.
Yes.
Old Warriors down there.
You know, that's something that always amazes me.
Yeah.
Man. The VON family, brother, when it's time to show up, y'all will be on the set.
Miss Rose and Roosevelt and all of them. It was all of them down there.
Yes, sir.
And I think, hip hoppers, you should get down there too.
There you go.
Because they said what about when we drop the ball? Who's supposed to pick the ball? Still alive, right?
That's right.
They're supposed to pick it up.
You got it.
Remember when the Bears played a couple of years ago? It was a couple seconds left. They kicked the ball, and the guy picked it up, walking down the field, right? And the referee, the two people in the world know what's going on that game. Hester and the referee. Everybody shake his hand, and when Hester seen the light, what did he do? Down the field.
That's right.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you, Robert.
All right.
Appreciate it, brother. Brother Robert, wisdom, the wisdom of the seniors. Let's go to my sister Kay. Hey, how are you?
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing. Happy birthday.
Just doing?
Or Earth Day. I'm doing.
Okay.
Doing is happening, so I'm doing what's happening.
So you just a verb. You only a verb. No noun or adjective.
Something like that.
Okay.
Well, happy Earth Day. I never say birthday. I say Earth Day.
That's fine. I like that.
Two things. Okay. Before the caller before, he talked about, he kind of stole my thunder because if you go on YouTube, you do see that with Steve Coakley, about the death of Martin Luther King, and he was trying to prove that Jesse Jackson had something to do with it because he wanted to take the reins.
Yep.
So if anyone's interested, just go on YouTube and you can see that. Yep. And also with Michael Schur, I don't know about that, but if you do go on there, you can type in his name and type in Libya, and you'll see what he thinks of that issue. So those are two things.
Well, did you see anything about him saying he wants to assassinate the president?
No, to be honest with you, I did not. But he apparently this man used to be a CIA agent.
Yeah, right.
And so he has access to a lot of things that we're not privy to. And he's made some interesting predictions that is happening, actually.
Like what? Well, one example.
Well, he said that Libya is they're going to have a decisive negative response towards the United States and Israel, the people in Libya, and that's happening now. And because it was artificially brought together, that's going to be the reason why it's not going to stay together. So if you go on YouTube, type his name.
That's not a difficult prediction whatsoever. That was obvious to anyone who knew the history of Libya that it was going to fall apart.
Yeah,
and that the whole justification for it was a lie, obvious rules in the first place. So that's not all that insightful that it's going to fall apart.
Oh, okay. Well, if you're just interested in, I mean, he's said some other things too. It's like the same interview, and then it's cut depending on whose YouTube site you go to. You see the 5-minute one, you can see the hour one. It just depends on you, what time you have, or how interested you are in the subject matter.
Okay.
Yeah, the same thing with Steve Coakley too. His not interviews, but his lectures, sometimes they're an hour, sometimes they're 5 minutes. Right. It just depends on who's doing the clipping and what's important to you. He's an interesting man, though.
Oh, yeah, he is, no doubt about it. Absolutely. Yeah,
because I never thought, when you see things, you don't really think that way, but when somebody points it out, it's like, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. We're just saying.
It's food for thought.
Okay, I'm going to exit stage right. Do you remember that cartoon?
Snagglepuss.
Yeah, exit stage right. So I'm going to do that so that somebody else can go on the stage.
Thank you, my sister. Appreciate it, Kay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, Snagglepuss, he was a hip cartoon, boy. A cat. I'm Snagglepuss. That's how I used to talk, right? Exit stage right. Or something like that. But, there was a time when Hanna-Barbera, those cartoons started to become popular. They replaced the Disney model, that kind of lush animation that was the signature of the Disney cartoons, Snow White and the Song of the South and all that junk. Hanna-Barbera stripped it down, but their dialogue was a lot sharper and a lot more politically astute. Yogi Bear and all them. Okay, back to the phones we go. Pete, good evening. How are you, sir?
Good evening.
All right, my man.
I'm going to get to a little sidebar here because since we're talking about some of these conspiracies, it was interesting at the end of the year, Hollywood Park out in California closed. They sit on 250 acres right outside of Los Angeles, and the land became very valuable. And the track was there for like 75 years. But the interesting thing about that, when I was watching, I flipped because I got the satellite, there was a trainer back in 1968 that hired Sirhan. He was looking for a job, and he was coming around the stables. At that time, they called him Sal. And he hired the guy for $400 a month. Well, this was in 68, early part of 68. And he says this guy was so infatuated when he would see headlines of Israel and the Palestinians, and he would really, he knew all the senators, he knew every issue on that. He said the guy was really sharp about that, but he had, told him a few times, you got to tone it down a little bit here. He says, because, people have other, views. He says, I understand,
So he would be vocal about his views?
Yeah, he was, vocal, and the trainer, he went along with him. He paid him $400 a month. He didn't have no money, Sirhan. So anyway, let's forward to when Bobby Kennedy got assassinated, all right? His wife calls him. She says, you're not going to believe this, but Sal? She goes, yeah. He goes, Sirhan. He goes, he just shot Bobby Kennedy. But about 3 weeks previous to that being done, whether he was a patsy or what, he started hanging around the track there with a lot of influential people that had a lot of money. Because, see, he didn't have no money. But toward the end there, he was sitting with them, drinking, flashing a lot of money. Who these people were, this guy said, the trader said, I don't know. Because they had their phones, him and his wife, for 1 year, he said they were tapped.
The trainer's phone?
Yeah, the trainer.
How did they know that?
Because they could hear the click.
Okay.
He said. And then they asked him, well, I know we're talking about the history of the racetrack. He goes, but what do you think on this assassination? He says, the people that he was hanging around with, and I was told that they were some real big people. He goes, he could have been set up. Real easy, but then he, dropped it, and then he went on to the history of the track. But I found that real interesting because I never really heard that, story. And you never really know when you're going to hear a story unless something like a racetrack that was a 75-year history was going to shut down. And now they're going to build big-time condos and executive offices and eateries and theaters, and it's for people that got a little money. You understand what I'm saying?
I understand.
That's why when they talk about here in Chicago, you hear people come on VON and talk about taking land and this and that.
Yes.
Hey, they've done that for thousands of years, Salim.
Yes.
I remember down on Anselm and Polk, where the Greek church is, St. Basil's. That used to be a Greek and Italians. About 500 families used to live there. When the UIC was going to take that land, they moved all those people out of there.
Yes, sir. I remember. I remember hearing of that. What used to be Little Italy, they just devastated it.
Yeah, they just upped and moved those 500 families. They told them, hey, we're taking the land. The university is built up. They moved the Greek town area. They used to be there. Over to Halstead,
so do you think there can be? Do you think that the American people will put their foot down at any point, man. All of these oligarchic moves, the way that the money, the capital is simply shoving everyone around. Do you think that there's going to be some reckoning that they have to pay eventually?
Well, if they don't, then you're going to be working for nothing out here.
Just about.
And a perfect example is we're going into the year 2014, and it's, it's time to get out here and vote. If you want to protect what you have, I'm not saying protect what you don't have. If you want to protect what you have, you got to get out here and vote. If you don't vote, then you don't count. But here, let me get to this last thing, Salim.
Okay, Pete.
Let's get to the West Virginia chemical spill.
Woo, man.
All right?
Yes, indeed.
Now,
wasn't that something?
Do you know that one of the guys' name was Kennedy, and the other guy's name was Sutherland? Now let's take this guy Kennedy.
You mean the spokesman for this group?
No, the guys who owned the chemical company.
Okay.
All right. Kennedy was
It's called Freedom Incorporated or something like that, right? Uh-huh.
But Kennedy was a 3-time convicted felon. First time he was convicted in 1997, he was convicted on drug charges. In order to stay out of jail, he turned as an informant for the government. In 2003, he swindled a company out of $1 million of wages. He was an accountant. He was supposed to take the money and supposed to send it to the government, to the federal government, IRS or whatever. You know what I'm saying? He swindled $1 million in 2003. 2005, he was convicted on income tax evasion. And this is the same guy now with his partner that owns this chemical company.
Wow.
So you know what they're targeted. They say that this guy was a big-time Republican operative, knew all the big guys.
So why do they have these English spokesmen? Or is that simply for image, or is there a connection to Britain?
It possibly could be a connection. But this guy, to me, sounds like he was a Segretti type, like in the Nixon era. A guy that they could blackmail, that was on the take, that knew how to connive, knew how to stay in jail. He would perform certain duties. Yes. He would take a chemical company and probably knew the way around all the red tape. And this is what happens when
amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing with these guys, how crooked they are. But these guys operate, Salim, all the time, and they're operating that way right now. That's why, maybe you don't want to vote, okay? Maybe you stop voting. But you know what? If you don't vote, you give the opportunity to these people to steal these elections, to make all the laws. It's the same thing like here in Illinois, all right? You got the Brady, you got Dillard. Both of those guys were connected with Alec. Both of them. Why would I want to vote for two guys that were connected with Alec? I know what I got when I got a guy like, Pat Quinn. I know what we got. But why would we want to bring in guys where Alec is going to write the laws?
That's a good question. That's a good question, Pete. I appreciate
that's why I say I would rather vote for a dead Democrat than a live Republican.
Okay.
Take care of yourself.
All right, Pete.
All right.
You too. Gets it in there. That's interesting what Pete says about this guy Kennedy. That's amazing that he would be somehow connected to the ownership of that chemical corporation. Freedom Incorporated is the name of it, that spilled that licorice smelling stuff into West Virginia water system. There are a lot of people who make their money like that. It was revealed when the so-called Miami 7, those brothers who are allegedly busted for terrorism in Miami, Liberty City, in 2007, I think was the date when they were busted. They claimed that they were trying to blow up the Sears Tower and all that. Well, it turns out that they were it was a sense they were entrapped by these provocateurs who were hired by the government. It turns out that these informants, these guys who convinced these brothers to get involved in this fake plot, that they were all veteran informants. One had been investigated for some sort of immigration violation, and in fact he had been convicted. And the way he would work his sentence off would be to act as an informant, and you know the higher level he could penetrate into so-called of a terrorist organization, the more he would be rewarded. And his partner was also accorded some sort of clemency in order to participate in this scheme to try to convince these hapless, poverty-stricken young brothers in the Miami area to act as if they were terrorists acting at the behest of Al-Qaeda, something completely absurd. But these guys were experts at manipulating people into saying incriminating things. They provided them all of the equipment that they allegedly used to case the targets and all of that. It was really an incredible act of deceit on the part of the government, a sleazy attempt to provoke and entrap some hapless participants into a fake plot, and it was absurd. Back to the phones we go. James, hey man, good evening. How you doing, brother?
Without.
All right.
Make it fast, brother. I really enjoyed your show, but I always do, man.
Oh man.
Yeah, your show is a monster.
Hey, brother, you add to the monster quality of it.
So thank you, brother. Your kindness will always be obliterated.
Yes.
Brother, the devil is busy. Brother, did you see the movie, the poster for the Mandela movie?
The poster
that they have around town?
The one with Idris Elba, who stars.
Right.
I have seen it, but I haven't really looked at it closely.
Someone told me underneath his photo they have the words troublemaker.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
I have to check it out, man.
But can you believe that they advertising a movie for Mandela? This man is fighting for freedom and liberation, and they have under the photo troublemaker.
Maybe that's a historical depiction of the way they portrayed him during that period or something like that.
Yeah, man, but why would you put troublemaker underneath the photo of somebody like Mandela who's fighting for his freedom and independence in his own country? How you gonna be a troublemaker?
That's what they considered him.
Yeah, but man, you don't. Okay, but you won't put that. That's dirty food, there, brother. These people.
I have to check. I have to check the post out to see the context. But I hear what you're saying. It does seem a little strange on the surface of it. But trying to understand why they would do it, I could understand that they were trying to make some sort of historical statement.
Yeah, well, okay, I haven't seen it. I'm going by what these people say.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have no problem with Brother Siddiqui bringing up Dr. King assassination. Mm-hmm. But I am curious as whether Brother Siddiqui realized that if the great white father do bring an investigation, he's going to do the investigating. Most of the assassinations here, big assassinations here, like the World Trade Center, the bombing in Oklahoma, they do the crime and they do the investigation. So I don't know exactly what Brother Siddiqui would look for them to say about the assassination when they was behind it. I wish he would call in and tell me one day what he's looking for.
I think Brother Siddiqui would say that just the fact that light is being shown or shined on the government complicity in this will be enough to awaken a lot of people. Just the fact that it would the revelation of the government's complicity in this would be enough in itself.
Yeah, but you're not going to have that when the people who behind the assassination do the investigation. And as for the phony Jews, those phony Jews hunting down the old Nazis, they get unlimited support from all governments in the world, including Germans, to find the Nazis and the phony Jews, Brother Siddiqui. They have unlimited money. They not depending on the people who did the killing to support them in finding the Nazis like we would be doing.
Okay, that's a good distinction as well.
Yeah. Now, Sister Pam say we haven't been able to duplicate the past as far as the black towns and inventions and, something like that. But well, I want to tell Sister Pam, when the man burned our towns and stole all our inventions, they broke the mold. So when we had people to come behind that, even though they had money, they couldn't see the mold. That's why with all the black businessmen we had in Chicago, politicians, they didn't control the south side of Chicago, Sister Pam. We had Johnson Products here, WVON, Nation of Islam.
Oh, we still got all that.
Got some of them. And we still, Sister Pam, we're not controlling the south side of Chicago because the man broke the mold. And look at Gary, Indiana, Sister Pam. Michael Jackson could have owned Gary. Motown in Detroit. Blacks dominant in the city. Politics. Motown. Barry Gordy. They couldn't come together and control Detroit. Barry Gordy said, well, I'm going to L.A. Michael Jackson said, I'm going to California and build a Neverland in California. Didn't want to build no Neverland in Gary. So I think, Sister Pam, when the man broke the mold as far as our towns and stealing all our inventions, even though we had black people with money, they couldn't see what need to be.
There was no visionary. Yes,
right. No vision.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it, James. That's
okay, brother. All right, thank you, brother. Next week,
man. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Yes.
They broke the mold. That's that's an argument. Brother James, this is you got to say for that brother. He's an original thinker. John, good evening. You're on the Talk of Chicago. How you doing?
Yeah, I haven't listened to this show in some years, and the same 10 calls that call every week are absolutely insane, and this show is garbage. I can't even believe you still have a show on, but they are crazy, and you guys have to be smokers, but this has to be the worst station on VON. For somebody to say that you all are just insane, absolute garbage. Have a good one.
Thank you, bro. All right. Brother John. Okay, let's go to Miss Say. Hey, Miss Say, how you doing?
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah,
Miss
hi, this is Lisa from Virginia. I think you got the best show.
Yeah, well, I think that brother was drunk in the gutter. I can almost smell his breath from here. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Well, to Brother James, hello, VON family. To Brother James, to that poster that you was talking about, I think I haven't seen it, but the word troublemaker, the reason why they probably did it is because Mandela was considered trouble, but I think his original African name meant troublemaker.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to say happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Happy birthday to MLK, Michelle Obama, all these people. But I wanted to talk about something beautiful today. They did a memorial for Amiri Baraka.
Did they? Where was this?
In Jersey.
Oh, okay. Oh, right.
Yeah,
okay.
But they had it on. They had it on the web, so I was able to watch some of it.
Okay.
Today. Yeah.
Well, is it on YouTube or is there a specific website?
A specific website. I think it's called National Progressive Radio.
Okay.
Something like that. Yeah, they had it live. And Danny Glover and some other gentlemen were hosting it, and only caught a little bit of it, but Sonia Sanchez was there, did a wonderful poem. Michael Eric Dyson was there.
Oh, man.
He said some powerful things. And Sister Soldier, that was a surprise. She was up there. And Avery Brooks, oh, my goodness, please. Just to hear him, oh, my goodness.
Wow.
We're about to be a Maceo singing the UNIA song. But he sang Round Midnight. It was just magical. Yeah, it really was.
Man,
it was a real nice
I know
day.
it's on web. I'm gonna check it out. Boy, I wish I could have been there. Actually, that was. I know that was.
Yeah. It was great what I saw. But I had a question that I meant to ask last week with when Dr. World was on. But maybe you can answer this because I don't know if you were in the service or over here when it happened. But this is pertaining to Patrice Lumumba. After his death, which really saddens me and hurts me. But the people over here, the Black Power movement, they did some sort of a protest or something at the UN. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, it was a pretty big protest at the UN when Lumumba was killed. I'm trying to think of Rosen was a part of it, but there were others as well who were a part of it.
Okay, because I read some books, and matter of fact, I had read a book about Mary Baraka saying that he had, started it, and I had read some other books that said that he started. I wanted to know who actually started it because that was very powerful. Because I think right after that, a lot of African nations became independent.
Well, yeah. I mean, that was the whole post-colonial movement at the time, it was after the Bandung Conference, right after the Bandung Conference, and so there was a very strong movement among independent African countries and not just African countries, but there was a whole non-aligned movement in general. That's when the whole term "the Third World" gained such purchase in international discussions. And Lumumba was a part of that post-colonial movement throughout much of the colonized world.
So do you think that, a lot of the things that we're going through now in this country and really around the world, that we could do something of that magnitude, learn from that, but do it in with a new twist, so to speak, and take it to the UN?
Hey, it's a possibility, but the question is that, at the time there was economic competition. The reason why the non-aligned movement was so powerful is because it was non-aligned between the two major polar powers at the time of the Cold War, the Soviet and the U.S. The non-aligned was neither communist nor capitalist, but it tried to appeal. It tried to strike a balance between two and gain leverage from that position as a mediator between those two, and also to try to embarrass each other. The communists would try to be more forthcoming toward those who had aspired to be free from colonialism. The capitalist world at the time was supporting the colonial powers, and so they tried to show that colonial styles of governance were more, were the best way for the society to move. So there was competition in that way. There's not that kind of competition today. There's only one economic system that's dominant. That's capitalism. And the socialist movement is pretty fractured. There's some attempts to revitalize some alternatives, but those attempts are still struggling to get their grounding. Yes, ma'am. Anything else? All right, Sister Lisa's gone. Let's go to Kellen. Hey, Kellen, how you doing?
Good evening, Salim.
Good evening.
As for Howard Morgan case,
yes,
I think the people should get behind with Governor Quinn since the election up this year to let this man out of jail.
Yes, sir.
And if it's possible, because Quinn got election coming up in March, and he need our vote. In November, he need our votes.
Mm-hmm.
So if he want our vote, he better let Howard Morgan out of jail.
Well, yes, sir. I think that Quinn and the state's attorney can go a long way toward making sure that Howard Morgan at least gets a fair shot at another trial.
But with Lisa, with a state's attorney Alvarez, I don't think so. I don't think anybody vote for Alvarez should be, it's coming in November. She shouldn't be reelected for state's attorney either, because she railroaded this man.
Yeah, she's been a disappointment.
Disappointment, and she railroaded this man back in the prison.
Yes, she did.
So this is double jeopardy what they're doing, getting them on.
Just about. Yes, sir. I agree.
All right. I'll take care of this thing.
All right, Kelly. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. And although that name was John, I think it was Ron. And although the brother may have put another name up because well, anyway, so be it. In Central African Republic, they're having problems. They're having problems in Uganda, South Sudan. In fact, the Ugandans have sent troops into South Sudan to try to end some of that sectarian violence there. And South Sudan is essentially between Dinka and Nua, who are the major ethnic groups, tribal groups in that part of the world. And in South Sudan, especially, Dinka have deep traditions in that part. John Garang, who was the former head of the SLP, was a Dinka as well, and yet he had support of Nua in a way that other Dinka leaders don't have, like the current leader of South Sudan, Brother Kurd. He's a Dinka, but he doesn't have that kind of support that Garang had. And it looks pretty difficult to get any kind of agreement in that part of the world. I think it's because really it was rushed by the West. They wanted to injure the regime of Sudan, the Khartoum regime. So they rushed it through. They pushed for some kind of separation, and also South Sudan is where all the oil is. Central African Republic is a little bit different because it has acquired a kind of religious sectarianism, which is unusual because there's always been religious harmony in that part of Africa, Muslims and Christians and pantheists, but there are problems now. So hey, Africa's having some struggles. Let's hope that they can get them together and get Africa back on the right course. We'll be rooting for them from here and following them from here as